Astra Yao is ZenlessZoneZero's first ever limited support, and recently I decided to test every single team composition possible. Today, however, I will also be covering important aspects of her kit for you to consider alongside pros and cons, and my findings after testing hundreds of different teams. And with this, hopefully today's video will help you decide whether she's worth pulling for, but without further ado, let's get into it. Despite her being one of the most game-changing supports we have, Astra is extremely easy to play. Yes, there are some considerations and optimizations that you can do, like using her ultimate to grant a damage dealer 2 chain attacks back to back, but overall her gameplay is very simple. Enter the field with Astra at the start of a fight, use her EX special to enter into her singing state, and use her quick assists whenever necessary to maintain her team-wide buffs. Now, in terms of important mechanics to understand, there are a few major features of her kit that are too important to overlook. First, we have the idyllic cadenza state, or as I'll be calling it for the rest of the video, her singing state. When active, Astra Yao increases the squad's damage by 20% and their crit damage by 30%. Next, we have her unique resource known as chords, and for every 25 points of energy, Astra Yao gains 1 chord. While in the singing state, assuming that Astra Yao has chords, a quick assist can then be activated through 2 different ways. One is by attacking an enemy, which can only be triggered once every 3 seconds, and the other way is by using a heavy attack against an enemy, which can only be triggered once every 1 second. The reason her chords are so important though is because they give her the ability to give the team a free activatable quick assist, and this, when paired with her core passive Graceful Andante, make her one of the best supports in the game. Graceful Andante reads as the following: while in the singing state, any allied quick assists, chain attacks, defensive or evasive assists, or if Astra specifically decides to release a tremolo, will result in Astra Yao increasing the attack of herself and the next incoming ally's attack. Now, these 2, technically 3 buffs by themselves already put Astra Yao ahead of other supports, but now we need to talk about her ultimate. To be clear, this ultimate is already valuable since it deals a decent amount of damage, but it also has the game's first ever healing attached to an agent's skill, while also changing the next 2 quick assists performed by allies to chain attacks. When used correctly, this means that a character like Zhu or even Ellen can make use of their insane chain attack multipliers to burst enemies. Or, as a spoiler for what I deep dived in my Astra Yao guide coming later, you could also use Astra alongside someone like Jane to really make her feel amazing. Since Jane Doe relies heavily on her passion state to deal damage and also refreshes her passion state whenever she uses a chain attack, this makes the 2 incredibly powerful together and is personally one of my favorite team compositions. But now it's time we talk about a few of the teams that I tested with Astra, my findings with these compositions, and the team that I found the most success with. Zhu was one of the first teams I tested, and it was mainly because I wanted to see if Nicole would get power crept. From my testing, this was pretty inconclusive or open-ended, since certain fights felt better when I had the crowd control from Nicole, but other fights where Astra took part in single target fights felt way smoother and cleared much faster too. That being said, I also experimented with both Ambi and Qingyi team compositions to try and see which would perform the best, and as I'm sure you'd imagined, Qingyi won consistently because of her stun damage increase. Now, before this video ends up being 2 hours long, there are a few attack agent based teams that I wouldn't have time to dedicate an entire section to, so I decided to make an entire blurb dedicated to them as a whole. In regards to Harumasa, Ellen, Soldier, and Nekomata, each of these teams performed similar to each other with a few exceptions. Nekomata's performance, while having to juggle assists and staying behind enemies to activate her signature, was pretty lackluster and weak, but overall, if you were able to keep track of and maintain uptime with Nekomata, she didn't perform that much worse than other attack agents. That being said, Ellen felt and performed way better than their S-rank peers, especially because her assist enabled her dash attack to become more consistent. For Anton, Billy, and Corin, you'll be happy to know that these teams actually performed decently results-wise, even compared to S-rank teams, and Anton specifically has received a number of indirect buffs, with things like the decibel changes increasing the overall energy that agents receive in combat. But what was really interesting that I found was just how well Billy's kit synergized with constant quick assists and the occasional double chain attack from Astra's ultimate. Billy, though typically overlooked because of his A-rank status, felt very smooth to play alongside Astra because of his own preferred gameplay loop of staying on field and soloing fights himself. Now, after immediately entering the singing state with Astra, swapping off of her and staying on Billy actually yielded very promising results, where Billy's damage saw a decent increase just because of how often he was able to use his assists. Now, if you're only just now noticing the trend of characters with more comfortable assists or chain attacks with special effects being better than the rest, well, congratulations, you'd be right, and the performance of these agents directly reflect just how good they are with Astra specifically. Now, in regards to Yanagi focused teams, they actually performed the second best in terms of damage and clear times across different tests. But something also worth mentioning in Astra Yanagi based teams was just how helpful her assists were. Yanagi's assists enabled her to use her stance changes more readily, and this was very helpful in managing which state I wanted to stay in when fighting with Yanagi. This aside, I did also appreciate having an assist that actually helped my agent's damage output, with the anomaly application of her assist being pretty decent. But overall, Yanagi Astra had tons of teams that performed well with each other while also clearing very quickly. Now, moving along to other anomaly based teams, we need to talk about Bernice, Piper, and all the other anomaly agents, and my personal favorite pairing, of course, Jane Astra. To start, let me make one thing very clear. All anomaly agents performed well and could clear any content, but a number of agents required way more effort than others. This by itself isn't necessarily a weakness of said teams, but comparing Grace, Piper, Astra to something like Bernice, Yanagi, Astra in both clear time and feel was shocking, no pun intended. The amount of effort required to clear with a team like Grace and Piper, alongside all the management of unique resources or buffs, was definitely more intense and confusing, but ultimately they did clear at a respectable pace, and that's definitely worth acknowledging. I would like to take a moment to talk about Bernice though, since I did reach separate conclusions and had specific findings about her as an individual as I was testing all these anomaly teams. To start, I definitely felt uncomfortable when I began my testing, assuming Bernice was the secondary DPS on a team that I had with Astra, and this included when I even paired her with characters like Jane or Yanagi, and it's simply because of Bernice's gameplay loop. Though her flamethrowers are exciting and cool to see visually, Bernice's afterburner effect provides her amazing value as a character that is best kept off field. Therefore, when constantly prompted to swap onto field, either to maintain Astra's core passive or anything in between, this felt awkward, undesirable, and actually counterintuitive. Now, despite all this, it should be known that Bernice still ended up clearing one of the fastest among all the different anomaly teams that I tested, but it definitely felt weird when you actually played it and when you had to test or go through content with Bernice specifically. Now, to contrast this, Jane Astra teams cleared encounters in record speed, and speaking genuinely, it was surprising to see a team that didn't have Yanagi in it complete content so quickly and so easily. The damage buffs to Jane by themselves were already amazing for her DPS, but I just couldn't ignore how impactful having 2 additional chain attacks on Jane's team really was. Managing the 2 free chain attacks from Astra's ultimate on Jane, or even Jane and another anomaly agent instead, pretty much resulted in a ton of extra anomaly buildup, extra disorders, or just some big burst damage. All of this was simply amazing, and this, when used properly, was game-changing to say the least. Now, you might have noticed that I haven't talked about Miyabi, and that's because I have a whole special section just for her. As you'd probably imagine, Miyabi had the highest damage performance across all teams that I tested, but before I even address her damage, I want to talk about her quick assist. For Miyabi, her quick assist not only dealt good damage, it also built a decent amount of anomaly, which further increased Fallen Frost's point generation. Given the importance of Fallen Frost points in Miyabi's kit for her enhanced basic attack and her 4000% multiplier, this was very welcome and actually contributed towards clearing fights quicker. Now, if we return back to the topic of damage, there were 2 things that I wanted to highlight though. First, yes, if you want the highest damage dealing team while also having the fastest clear, well, Miyabi will definitely be the character that you want to invest in. However, I also wanted to mention the fact that some teams with Astra Yao and Miyabi on them actually dealt so much damage that using a second support like Rina or Nicole was better for clear time than taking a whole second DPS like Bernice or even Yanagi. This is genuinely insane to even say out loud, but a lot of my fastest clears upon several tests were specifically when testing Miyabi with Astra, and this was when I included other supports to one-shot whatever was on field instead of taking another DPS. Overall, the Miyabi Astra pairing was absolutely crazy in terms of damage and clear times, but make no mistake, Miyabi and Astra were also very versatile with how many different agents that you could pair with them. On that note, in case you were curious, the fastest clearing team that I found when experimenting with and testing all Astra teams was Miyabi Nicole Astra, and it wasn't even close. Now that you have an idea of how Astra teams perform though, I also wanted to include a few pieces of advice for pre-farmers or for those of you looking to get ahead and prepare for the future. If you are someone looking to build Astra Yao, here are the following resources you'll need for her. 3,705,000 Dennies for the purpose of upgrading your agent's skills and ascensions, 30 ruler support seals, the purple ones, 32 advanced support seals, the blue ones, and 4 basic support seals, the green ones, to ascend your agent to level 60. You'll need 300 senior investigator logs to level said agent to level 60. You'll need 250 specialized, 75 advanced, and 25 basic ether chips, in addition to 5 hamster cage passes for all skills to be level 12. To max her core passive, you'll need 9 notorious hunt materials from the twin marionettes, also known as finale dance shoes, and finally you'll need 60 higher dimension data drops from Thracian or Thracian in the expert challenges. If you're also looking to pull and upgrade her signature, you'll need a couple additional materials, and this includes the following: 400,000 Dennies, 30 specialized, 32 reinforced, and 4 support components. And to level said W engines, similar to like with the agent, you'll need 200 separate W engine energy modules for the purpose of leveling up the W engine. Now, I won't go too deep in this video right now about disk drives or W engines, since I'll be saving that for the guide that I have for Astra Yao later, but I did want to leave you guys with a few recommendations for both of these choices. Disk drive wise, Astral Voice 4-piece and 2-piece Swing Jazz will definitely be your ideal pairing, and this is because the set synergizes perfectly with Astra, given that she has pretty much no fuel time at all. Therefore, the added passive that can actually be maintained by Astra is perfect for boosting the damage of her allies. But otherwise, getting a 2-piece set effect of Swing Jazz so she can generate chords faster is nice, but certainly not game breaking if you can't complete the effect. For W engines, you'll be surprised to hear that Sokaku's, Lucy's, and even Nicole's signatures all perform pretty competitively, even compared against Astra's signature. But if I had to give a recommendation, I would personally choose Bashful Demon, aka Sokaku's signature W engine, given the attack percent and extremely valuable team-wide attack increase that it has. Now, before we end today's video, I did want to include a few pros and cons of playing Astra Yao after testing her extensively, and here's what you can consider. Pros: the singing / humming every time that you perform a quick assist is pleasant and kind of catchy. You also basically play a 2-person team composition, since Astra stays on field but never really needs to be controlled for any reason. Her damage increases are not overlookable and actually contribute to an insane DPS buff to her allies. Her heal can be very helpful in content like Battle Tower, where you are attempting to survive difficult fights. Her ultimate, giving 2 chain attacks for free, adds another layer of complexity, but also potentially higher damage if you use it effectively. And finally, her gameplay is very simple and pretty mobile friendly if you prefer to play on iPhone or, well, Android. Now, in terms of cons, we do have a few, including, well, the singing / humming getting kind of old after hearing it, especially if it repeats for weeks, months, or maybe even a year. Another con is that playing a 2-person team composition can genuinely get stale or boring, since you aren't really quote-unquote playing as Astra Yao. And finally, her heal, though helpful in difficult content like maybe with Battle Tower, has pretty much no other use in content like Shiyu or Deadly Assault, where surviving is less of an issue and your only concern is clearing quickly. That's gonna be it for today's video though, guys. I hope you guys enjoyed. It took me quite a long time, honestly, to compile all this testing and data, and I kind of wanted to do a bit more extensive research into the team compositions that people will be testing or trying with Astra Yao as she comes out. But as always, guys, for today's video, I hope you learned or enjoyed. If you want to support my content though, feel free to check out the rest of my socials. Feel free to check out the rest of my videos. Leave a comment, like, turn on the notification bell, and subscribe. Thank you again for watching, everyone. I will see you all in the next one. Stay safe, stay healthy. Good night.